Stop, 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 stop. Look at me, look at me.
When Keshan's father, upon hearing the news of his son's death, is overcome with emotion. His frantic, desperate cries for his son are visceral and heart-wrenching.
No, please stop, man. Let's take you. We're gonna take you over here.
As he breaks down, the camera focuses on his uncontrollable grief, his loud cries echoing through the quiet neighborhood. In the background, officers attempt to maintain order as bystanders, some of whom are family members, react in shock. A single image of Keshan's body, lying cold in the woods, is shown briefly. The shocking brutality of the scene, juxtaposed with the raw pain of a father who can no longer protect his child.
This is not the last memory you
Pulls the viewer in. It is a moment that demands attention, as it marks the irreversible loss of a 15-year-old boy. A boy whose life was taken in an instant, setting the stage for a complex investigation into how such a tragic end came to be. On the morning of December 3rd, 2020, around 9:30 a.m., several calls flooded into the Athens, Georgia Police Department. The calls described gunshots ringing out from the woods behind Westchester Circle, a quiet residential area. Officers were dispatched immediately, and upon arriving, they found 15-year-old Keshan's lifeless body lying behind a fence at the edge of the woods.
Said his name was Keshan Gaynor, and he's 15.
Then you can probably start CID this way.
He had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, the brutality of which was clear from the visible blood stains surrounding him. As officers approached the scene, it was apparent that Keshan had been lying there for some time, exposed and alone, before anyone arrived. Medics attempted to revive him, but it was too late. His life had been taken before help could reach him, leaving a community stunned and searching for answers.
Shell casing here, there's a shell casing next to that.
I need
Do me a favor.
here at 201, one in the front, one in the back.
You just keep on this. I know they gotta do what they gotta do, but just try to keep going this.
As the police began their investigation, they discovered a backpack nearby, seemingly insignificant at first, but this would soon become a pivotal piece of evidence. Inside the backpack, officers found Keshan's personal items: a phone, wallet, some clothing, and a digital scale. However, one detail stood out: there was no cash in the wallet, even though it appeared there had been at one point. This missing cash, along with the other items found in the backpack, raised immediate suspicions.
Camouflage cover. Oh, I've got a, what is that, a Georgia EBT food stamp card to Kenya's Yerby down in the bottom.
Keshan's death was no random act, it was targeted. Someone had taken something from him, and now they had taken his life. This small clue, an empty wallet, was the first sign that Keshan's murder wasn't about a simple robbery or chance violence. The backpack began to tell a story of betrayal, lies, and a motive rooted in something deeply personal. As the investigation unfolded, a clear motive began to emerge. What seemed like a random shooting was quickly revealed to be a result of a deep, personal grudge. Investigators learned that Keshan had been involved in a dispute over a stolen backpack, a seemingly trivial issue that spiraled into a deadly confrontation. The stolen backpack, which had initially seemed like an unimportant detail, now became central to the case. Inside the bag were personal items, but crucially, it was believed to have contained cash and possibly illegal substances. Keshan was accused by the suspects of taking the backpack, though the details of this accusation remained unclear. Regardless, the dispute had escalated. What should have been a simple argument between teenagers turned into a vicious act of violence. The suspects involved in the conflict were identified as two young men, KT Kenya Yerby and Decoin Faust, who had once been close to Keshan. At one point, the three had been friends, but their relationship had soured in recent months. Keshan's alleged theft of the backpack served as the catalyst for the deadly escalation. The motive behind the murder became more chilling with each new revelation. What began as a petty argument over a stolen item quickly turned into an act of premeditated violence. The betrayal was not just about theft, it was about personal pride and retaliation. In the minds of the suspects, Keshan had wronged them, and the consequences were dire. As the case began to unravel, investigators wasted no time piecing together the scattered clues. Officers conducted a thorough search of the area where Keshan's body was found, looking for any additional evidence that could help identify the perpetrators. While combing through the woods, they found more items, including a black and mild cigar, a Georgia EBT card, and even a camouflage cover. But the key discovery was the backpack. This backpack, initially just a seemingly random item, now became a crucial link in connecting the dots between Keshan and the suspects.
Looks like we got
White
an
iPad.
iPad, black and mild, black ski mask type thing. Some kind of...
Meanwhile, Keshan's family, particularly his father, were reeling from the news of his death. His father, devastated by the sudden loss of his son, was overcome with grief as officers attempted to console him. But it was clear that nothing would ease the pain of losing a child, especially in such a senseless and violent way. The emotional distress of Keshan's father added urgency to the investigation. This was no longer just a crime scene. It was a parent's worst nightmare, and justice had to be served. As word of Keshan's death spread, detectives focused on those who were closest to him. The suspects, KT and Coin, immediately came under suspicion. Officers interviewed people close to Keshan, including his friends, neighbors, and family members. Keshan's friends confirmed that KT and Coin had been part of his circle, but their relationship had soured, adding fuel to the investigation. Keshan had reportedly argued with KT over the missing backpack, which further linked the suspects to the crime. At this point, the investigators knew they were dealing with a more complex situation than a simple shooting. The lies, shifting alibis, and personal grudges pointed to something much deeper. The case was no longer just a homicide. It was a web of betrayal and vengeance. The breakthrough in the investigation came when a key witness, Eugenia, came forward with crucial information. Eugenia had been one of the few people who had seen something that could tie the suspects to the crime. On the morning of Keshan's murder, she was upstairs in her home and happened to look out her window, where she witnessed a man emerge from the woods and enter a nearby house. Eugenia described the man as wearing a hoodie and moving quickly, almost as though he was trying to avoid being seen. She noted his distinct hairstyle, which she described as twists, not quite locks, but something in between.
So you were out here in the back, and you saw, or you heard, it sounds like some shots, and then you saw someone come from the woods and then enter this
apartment. He came out the back door here on the right hand side, and I saw mostly the side of his face, and I saw his face when he came out. But
did you see his hairstyle though?
well, it's like the little twist up things. It wasn't like locks or anything, but he had been twisting it. You know how they wear a napkin now.
Yeah.
This was an important detail, as it helped investigators narrow down the suspect pool. She also remembered that the man left the house after a short time, accompanied by someone else, which seemed odd.
Less than 5 minutes. He wasn't in there that long. Just maybe long enough to get somebody to take him wherever he was going. Because he came out the back door, he had taken off the hoodie.
Do you know who lives here?
I don't know their names.
And so he took off whatever he had on and changed?
Except for the jacket. He opened his jacket up and took off his hat. That's pretty much all he did.
Did you see him with a gun or anything like that?
Well, it looked like a gun. That's what I was telling him. He had something metal in his hand. He was putting it in his pocket as he was coming across.
Through. Okay.
What was even more significant was Eugenia's identification of the vehicle the man had. Arrived in a dark red SUV. This detail placed the suspects, KT and Coin, in the area at the time of the shooting.
All I could say was an SUV. It was a dark red color.
Dark red?
Yeah.
Now, is this guy,
is
he Latino, black, white? Black guy? Okay.
Further investigation revealed that the red SUV belonged to one of the suspects, solidifying their connection to the crime.
The red SUV, you said they work on cars. Is that one that's usually here? Or is that
Yeah,
one that
that's
he
one
could
that's
be
usually
working?
here.
Eugenia's testimony was pivotal. It was the first real clue that led police to the suspects, KT and DeCoin. Her observations put them both at the scene at the time of the shooting, and the red SUV linked them directly to Keshan's murder. With this new lead, investigators were able to focus their attention on the two men, who had both been involved in the dispute over the stolen backpack. This was the turning point the investigation needed: a clear lead that connected the suspects to the crime scene and provided police with a concrete direction to pursue. With the investigation now firmly focused on KT and Coin, officers moved quickly to apprehend the suspects. They had already located the red SUV connected to the scene and gathered enough evidence to make their move. The police, armed with search warrants, descended on the residences of both men, hoping to find critical evidence that would tie them to the murder. At the same time, detectives began questioning the suspects. DeCoin was the first to be taken into custody. He was brought in for questioning, where he initially denied any involvement in Keshan's murder. However, under the pressure of the investigation and mounting evidence, Coin started to crack. He revealed that, although he didn't pull the trigger, he knew exactly who did. DeCoin's confession was a turning point in the case. He admitted that KT was the one who shot Keshan, but Coin had played a role in driving him to the woods. Coin's confession provided the police with valuable details. He explained that KT had been enraged over the missing backpack and believed Keshan had stolen it. KT, according to Coin, had confronted Keshan in the woods, and during that confrontation, he shot him. DeCoin's role was that of a driver, someone who helped facilitate the murder by transporting KT to and from the scene. Meanwhile, KT was arrested as well. He too eventually confessed to his involvement, revealing the personal animosity that had been brewing for months. The missing backpack, which contained cash and possibly drugs, had been the spark that ignited the fatal confrontation. KT admitted to shooting Keshan out of anger and frustration, believing that Keshan had stolen from him.
You want to step in and talk to Paul? And I'll just hang out here for a second.
Additionally, Raven, DeCoin's girlfriend, was implicated for her role in hiding evidence. She had helped dispose of the red SUV and the firearms used in the crime, attempting to cover up the murder. Her actions were a critical part of the investigation, as they revealed how the suspects tried to distance themselves from the crime. The confessions of Coin and KT, combined with Raven's involvement in the cover-up, solidified the case against them. The pieces of the puzzle were now in place, and the investigation had reached its climax. With the confessions in hand and the evidence mounting, the legal process began to unfold swiftly. Katie Yerby was charged with murder. DeCoin Faust was charged with felony murder, aiding and abetting, and possession of a firearm during a violent crime, while Raven Bennett faced charges for hindering apprehension and tampering with evidence. Despite their involvement, Bubba, a former friend of Keshan who had been linked to the case, was ultimately not charged. His connection to the murder was tenuous, and he managed to walk away without facing any legal consequences. For Keshan's family, however, no charge or legal action could bring back their son. His father, whose grief was on display throughout the investigation, had lost his child in a brutal, senseless act of violence. The emotional toll on his family was immeasurable, and the community that once knew Keshan as a bright 15-year-old was left to cope with the tragedy. The case was a grim reminder of how quickly something small like a stolen backpack could spiral into irreversible consequences. It highlighted not only the brutality of youth violence, but also the emotional devastation that comes with the loss of a loved one, especially under such violent circumstances. The trial and legal proceedings would follow, but for now, Keshan's family had to face life without him, carrying the weight of a tragedy that no one should ever have to endure. The case closed with the arrest of those responsible, but the grief remained, an ever-present reminder of the violent end to a young life.